if we can simply keep things that suppress mitochondrial function away and keep the health of the cell and the mitochondria fairly strong by
Mhm.
avoiding too many bad things, not all of them, but too many of them, and optimizing the cell, then we're going to have extreme resilience. So we're going to be able to handle being around people that get sick or have viruses or go shopping in a mall that has mold in it or whatever these smaller insults are.
Today on the Evolving Wellness podcast, I have Dr. Jaban Moore, and he is going to talk about his story of going from a strong, healthy young man to someone who was almost disabled from illnesses that typical doctors could not figure out. At the same time, he was actually going through medical school himself, and so he took it upon himself to try to understand his health on a deeper level. Today, he helps people of all ages, even children, in a different way. And he looks at the body through a more holistic lens, looking at the mitochondria, the nervous system, and other factors that can really, really impact health. It was definitely an interesting conversation that I think you're going to enjoy. And if you want to follow Dr. Moore or even work with him, I will make sure his link is down in the show notes. I hope you enjoy today's show. In the world of weight loss supplements, hacks, peptides, biohacks, and gadgets, one thing that's still not getting enough airtime, in my opinion, is the impact of artificial light at night on your metabolism. Now, there's actual ample scientific research to show that not enough light in the mornings and too much light at night actually slows down your metabolic rate. This is why I choose Viva Rays to be my go-to source for blue blockers. I absolutely love the quality of their glasses, and I have a spectrometer and have measured to see that they actually block the amount of blue light that they say they do. So if you're looking for a pair of high quality blue blocking glasses to support your metabolism, your health, your mood, and your sleep, check out Viva Rays and use the code YOGI to save 15%. It's vivarays.com and use the code YOGI to save 15%. Thank you to Viva Rays for sponsoring today's podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Excited to have today's guest, Dr. Moore, who is up in Kansas City today to talk about a little bit of an alternative viewpoint to things like mold, Lyme, kind of these hot topics that are out there. So thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Some of my favorite topics, so I'm excited to share and help people. I know when I went through my journey, just figuring out what was possible and finding someone to be able to give me some direction was something I was begging for. And it was hard to find 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people are right now. Just like, what do I do? And I see a lot of vague things. So maybe we can talk about your story, but I see a lot of things online where an influencer will post about some issue they're having and people in the comments, it's mold, da da da. I'm like, I find that those conversations are not helpful because it's like, okay, you're telling people it's this problem, but you're not really giving them a solution to that. And I think that that is where people are getting very hung up. Um, so maybe we could talk about that, but let's talk about your story first.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was a collegiate athlete, couple time All-American, shot put thrower. So I was a big, strong boy. I worked out all the time, and something happened. Like I just couldn't get stronger at some point. My body just stopped progressing. I started having pain, started getting fatigue and brain fog after, I mean, I was going through school and getting good grades and classes were easy. I didn't really know what was happening. Didn't understand why my body felt like it was changing. And at the time, people like, oh, well, you're getting a little older, you're not 18 anymore. I'm like, I'm 23. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. But
Mm-mm.
that's kind of the concept that a lot of people tell you, like, oh, you're getting older, things are going to get worse, your body's not going to recover the same. Sure, but not from 18 to 23. And then
Mm-hmm.
hormone dysfunction started hitting me, got erectile dysfunction. I graduated from my undergrad master's degree work and got into my doctoral program, lost 60 pounds, and then everything got worse. So
Mm.
I felt worse as I got lighter. I had more problems as I got lighter and healthier and ate better and slept better and took care of myself better. And I was like, what is happening? And I really wasn't being given a lot of answers. I had the opportunity to consult with lots of doctors because I was in a professional school for health, right? I was at conferences with medical doctors, chiropractors, naturopaths, and I'd ask people like, what's going on? And for, let's say, erectile dysfunction, which there's really no answer out there. Oh, your
Hmm.
testosterone's low. Well, no, mine was a 900, so not low. Well, this just happens to some people at this age. Like, no, I mean, by the time I'm 25, I'm like, not really. That's not the answer I'm looking for. I'm not accepting this.
Right.
And as my joints hurt more, my knees hurt to go upstairs. I was getting injured very easily when I was working out lightly, warming up even. Um, Fatigue was coming on, food allergies were increasing. So I went from eating whatever I wanted to being allergic to dairy, berries, chicken, almonds. That's all the ones I can remember off the top of my head. I'm not allergic to any of them anymore. I got through
Mm.
all that, got recovered. But eventually, to make this long story short, is I went from doctor to doctor to doctor, went from Band-Aid fix to Band-Aid fix, whether that was L-arginine or people telling you to take a little blue pill or you're just getting older or eat better or exercise more, to finally finding somebody who was like, hey, man, I think you might have Lyme.
Mm.
And that was a big portion of the story. And by working with him, he helped me get a lot better. But looking back, it was actually mold that made my body vulnerable to getting the Lyme. And it was the stress of sports and doctoral program and then massive body change really rapidly. I think that put me in a bad place as far as being able to like defend myself from Lyme and parasites and other things. And then once I figured out what those foundational problems were, like, and people say root cause, but I'm like, well, I had mold and Lyme and parasites and heavy metal, so it's root causes. Once I figured out what those things were, I was able to really have a place to start. And now, I mean, I'm 30, almost nine, and I'm doing CrossFit, I'm working out. I am almost never tired unless I do it to myself and stay up too late watching a show or something. So I go back to say is like people were telling me I was getting older at 23 and I feel amazing at 39.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel the same. I'll be 46 like next month, and I feel better now than I did in my 20s, legitimately. Um, so I think that and I have women in their 60s that are feeling better than they did in their 30s in my community. So it's when people say that, oh, you're just getting older, I'm like, nope, it's a huge form of gaslighting, I think, that's going on to people in general. And so, yeah, it's good to hear that from somebody in the medical field to know that it's complete nonsense. Um, so here's the thing with all these things, how do you feel about the fact that it's the mitochondria and the cell that needs support in order to not let all these things in? Because I feel like it's can be kind of daunting to piecemeal out each individual problem. Like how does that play into how you treat people in your viewpoint? I'm just curious.
So my note, like when I type out my note for a client, I've developed basically a pattern. So people, as soon as they come to me, like prefab puts in, here's a bunch of questions I'm going to ask because I need to make sure I don't miss any. So I've tried to put all those in there that are the potential things that can hold somebody back from being able to get well. And the categories are, do you live in a place that is safe? Is your nervous system regulated and feeling safe in that place? And then, yeah, we got to deal with whatever those things that are in your body, the toxins, the infections, the deficiencies,
Mhm.
the things that have happened to your body that are able to keep your body down even once you fix the first two things, that feel safe and be in a safe place. And the reason why I brought that up for the mitochondria, the cellular health question is we're born into a world that's fairly toxic. I think most people, especially people that are
Oh yeah.
listening to you or coming to me, kind of agree to that. The body,
Hmm.
though, is an incredible, incredible thing. It can adapt to so much. It has mitochondria, which are your powerhouse, that also regulate your hormones, have cell danger response, which means that it can protect itself or cause itself to die if it's too
Hmm.
damaged. And you have to, as a person, figure out, well, why would your body be in a place where it allows you to be unwell. And how do we get out of that? So, for the healthy individual, for you and I now, where we are today, if we can simply keep things that suppress mitochondrial function away and keep the health of the cell and the mitochondria fairly strong by
Mm-hmm.
avoiding too many bad things, not all of them, but too many of them, and optimizing the cell, then we're going to have extreme resilience. So we're going to be able to handle being around people that get sick or have viruses or go shopping in a mall that has mold in it or whatever these smaller insults are. So the way I describe this is your body has the ability to adapt to a lot. Put a backpack on. That 1 pound doesn't stop you from doing anything. You can go hike a mountain when you're well. If you're not well, maybe it's a little harder right now, but that's because your backpack in this analogy is full of stuff. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I take and I put a book in there, just like when you're in school, like a big old textbook, put that in your backpack. That's mold, and another one for Lyme, and another one for the parasites you're coming around, another one for the environmental toxins. Well, how about one for childhood trauma or working too much or not eating enough or whatever it is that deters from your body having the vitality it's supposed to. Eventually, with enough books, you literally can't even stand up. And that's where a lot of the clients that I'm seeing are. So it really truly comes down to balance. It comes
Mm-hmm.
down to you sometimes if you're sick enough, you have to get rid of enough stuff that your mitochondria can get ahead and then create that ability to adapt and have resilience. And then you once you're there, like where I am, where you are, I mean, before I came and jumped on this podcast, I took a few herbs that help with my adrenals because I'm traveling this week. So I'm going to have a little bit more stress on me because I still got to get all my stuff done before I go. I am going to go to a conference where I'm probably going to stay in a moldy hotel room. It's just like a possibility. I'm not worried about it because my body can adapt to that for a few days. If it was a ton in my house and I was breathing it every day, all day, that becomes more
Mm-hmm.
problematic. So your body will adapt to a ton. Mitochondrial health is vitally important. It just have a breaking point. I think that's what I'd like to say.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think then you talk a lot about the nervous system and how that plays a part. And that's one of the first questions it sounds like you ask is to see if this person might be in sympathetic overdrive due to lifestyle and environment. Am I right about that?
Yeah, due to anything, honestly. I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, like your nervous system you got from your parents.
Mm-hmm.
You got everything they went through. So if your mom or dad was a worrywart that went through a ton of trauma, that didn't take care of themselves, maybe they were alcoholic, who knows? That's going to trigger genetic SNPs that make your body potentially more vulnerable to the environment or more vulnerable to stress. So you have that coming in. And then you have nature versus nurture. So did they teach you to be more in fight or flight just in your day-to-day life? Or did they teach you to be relaxed, right? My dad, I never saw a thing bother him hardly ever. My mom
Mm-hmm.
was the opposite. So of course, I'm the combination of who they are. And if you're the person that honestly was taught worry every time someone's coming to your house. Make sure it's absolutely perfect. And you, if you don't have that, then you're not a good person or you're not clean or whatever that thought process is, which a lot of my clients have. My
Mm-hmm.
mother was that way. Then every time someone's coming over, you're panicked about your house being perfect. That's stress. That's
Mm-hmm.
wearing you out. It makes your body feel stressed, which is no different than unsafe as far as the way it responds. So you could have genetics, you could have the way you were taught to be throughout your life, whether it was a proper teaching or trauma or whatever. And then on the other side, yeah, infections like Lyme disease, when they get into your body, if they can overcome your mitochondrial response, your immune response, then they stress your body. If you're
Mm-hmm.
living in mold, then it stresses your body. So toxins and infections. So for me, it's not just a toxin and infection problem that could put someone in fight or flight. It's also the genetics they were given and the experiences they have in their life, all that combines to bring us back to, in the end, does your body feel safe? As a simple question, but it's not safe from like, I'm going to be harmed necessarily. It's calm, cool, collected. It's um, to some degree okay in your surroundings. And I ask questions that are a little pointed. I'm very direct. So, to your audience, if they're offended, I'm sorry, but I'll ask people, do you feel Like you're at all a perfectionist, OCD,
Mm-hmm.
a people pleaser? Do you constantly worry about things? Those types of personalities, nothing wrong with them, except for they take a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a lot of energy on that topic, you may not have enough energy to defend yourself against the mold in a hotel room, like I'm talking about, or in your home.
Yeah. So do you do any kind of nervous system retraining in your practice, or how do you support that?
So I don't directly do the nervous system retraining myself. I have found some really good partners and resources, depending upon what that person needs, to refer them to. There's all kinds of programs out there for limbic, somatic, vagal nerve exercise, breath work. I just figure out what that person themselves needs. And sometimes those at-home programs can be an amazing shift to their nervous system. And I've seen people just the outlook on their entire life change.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts them in a place where their body's no longer at a deficiency of energy. So then we can get to the job of doing the detox, cleaning up the environment on the other side. Sometimes it takes more. So sometimes I have some referrals that we send to people depending upon, because I work all around the world. So depending upon where you are, I try to find somebody closer to you to do some of the more in-office things. Neural
Mm-hmm.
therapy is a great tool. So this can be a tool that is a procaine injection over a ganglia of nerves. And this
Mm-hmm.
injection can help to basically reset the autonomic nervous system. And when I say reset, I'm talking like turn your phone on and off. It's extremely low risk. I've done it myself. It's a small needle with a little bit of short-term anesthesia, meaning like 20 minutes that you might feel slight numbness in one little spot on your neck or your abdomen over
Mm-hmm.
the ganglia. And it's a reset, meaning it doesn't cure anything. It just resets the nervous system. So if you've done the work through the limbic and somatic, or if you've removed the trauma or dealt with the toxins, now that reset allows your body to recalibrate where you are. And that
Interesting.
recalibration can pull you out of that fight or flight a bit for those people who are stuck. So, in a more extreme case than breath work, then I'm like, okay, well, we have neurotherapy, we have neurofeedback, which is sound, light, and color therapy for retraining the
Mm-hmm.
brain. We have procaine IVs or ketamine. So, there's a lot of tools that can be used to help with the nervous system. Because a lot of people I work with, they've been stuck in patterns for a long time.
Yeah.
And they need sometimes a little bit more support than just an at-home physical therapy for the brain, which is what I call a lot of that like
Mm-hmm.
limbic work. I call it physical therapy for the brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting. I've never heard of the injection before, but if someone's listening, what I interpreted from what you said, maybe you can clarify, is that they still have to do the work
Mhm.
of supporting the nervous system, whether that's an at home training or some kind of therapy, fixing
Mhm.
the lifestyle, fixing the diet. But this can be like kind of the icing on the cake. So it's not like a fix, it's not the only solution. Cause I think sometimes people hear those sorts of things like, oh, this is the thing, you know? Um, am I right about that? Am I on the right path? Or,
Yeah, it's a tool. It is a tool. It is
yeah.
not the long-term solution. Sometimes I do have to get people to do this early on because
Mm,
even doing limbic work, just simply doing breath work, I've had trigger
it's
people.
they freak out. It's not
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I've
So
seen
that's
that.
like I call that the physical therapy, the active work. Sometimes
Hmm.
these, say for instance, stellate ganglion blocks, they can help lower the threshold of stress in the body temporarily because it's just a reset. If you
Hmm.
reset your phone and it has a virus, it didn't solve the problem. Like if you just turn it on and off, right?
Right.
If you
Right.
clear the virus, and then turn your phone on and off, a lot of things typically go back to appropriate function.
Factory
So
setting.
you
Yeah.
can't skip the clear piece. Now,
Hmm.
sometimes turning your phone off and on and off will allow you to do the next step. And that's where this stellate ganglion block may come into play or neural therapy may come into play, is just helping us to take a step forward. I even have medical doctors in several states that I'm working with that are on my team, and they will prescribe things like chromalin or LDN to,
Hmm.
again, help with tempering the stress the body's experiencing so that we can get in and do the real work, the long-term work, all the things that, you do in the initial, the LDN, the chromalin, even the stellate ganglion blocks. those realistically, to some degree, are like a band-aid.
Hmm.
They're helping you to make those next more long-term steps.
Yeah, I agree. At the end of the day, you still have to fix the terrain and like why was your body susceptible to those things in the first place?
Hmm.
Um, because if you don't, then you're just going to be in this game where you're wiping out and it's coming back, and you're wiping out and it's coming back, and that's the pattern I've seen a lot of people stuck in. Is they're
Hmm.
just in this like constant clean out thing, and I'm like, not going to be a long-term solution. So, yeah, how do you help people beyond kind of these reset things to strengthen up the terrain? Like what sort of things do you teach, or what kind of things do you have people implement?
Yeah, I mean, terrain, speaking of the body, I think of the body as, yeah, the cells, your microbiome, and also the environment you're in. So I
Mm,
expand it
mm,
beyond just the terrain of your individual body. And the first and usually the easiest thing for people to do is clean up what they're putting onto their terrain. If
yeah.
you're constantly putting in new toxins or retoxing while you're detoxing, it gets really hard to get anywhere. So,
Yeah.
um, while working on the nervous system, we're cleaning up their environment, whether that be that 170 million Americans are drinking radioactive water,
Oh
where
my
there's
God, I
uranium
know.
or radium in the water. And this is a huge holdback. I've had people go to really incredible providers that, I mean, their mold protocols, their lab work, their nervous system work is even good, but no one checked the water. So then I'm like, okay, well, I checked your water and we actually changed the
Basic
water.
thing. Yeah.
Well, the hard part is you have to distill water to remove the
Yeah.
radium. There is no other way to
Yeah.
do it. And
Yeah.
then there's a big worry of, well, if I distill water, is there no minerals left in it? And I'm like, let's make it clean first, and then yes, we can bring minerals back and so forth. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so yeah, the environment, the water, the food, the air, the hygiene, the dental work.
Hmm.
I'm working on
Hmm.
those things while working on the nervous system, and then we have all of our labs, and this is really the work that I get into that takes so much longer. Is we have all the labs, and we're going, okay, how do we help the body? Well, if you're deficient in sodium and potassium because your body's been under stress for a long time, how do your sodium potassium pumps work to move anything in and out of the cell that is a toxin? It doesn't. So we're bringing in those vital nutrients. Your mitochondria are suppressed, so we see multiple markers in Krebs cycle, or we see them in your fatty acid oxidation cycle, which is beta oxidation. So we see these cycles through an organic acid test. Like, are your mitochondria able to produce energy? Yes or no? Many times they are
Hmm.
suppressed by toxins such as mold or uranium that I've talked about a lot. So if they're suppressed by that, then we got to remove those things that are actually in there gumming up the electron transport chain, not allowing the mitochondria to produce the energy for your body to be well. So we start pulling those things out through detox methods. Some of the things that I'm doing is I start with opening up the drainage pathways.
Hmm.
I feel like that's somewhat common to talk about today, but also not nearly enough people are doing it. So like if you're not pooping every day, you got to poop. We can use magnesium oxide or citrate as easy things to bring in. There are more harsh things that you can bring in if necessary. You can do coffee enemas if necessary, which can be a good tool. But again, I want your body to be able to do all this on its own with
I want to get
no help.
addicted to those. I find people they do those too often.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've got
Yeah.
people coming in. They're like, I do it 3 times a day. I'm like, no, 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 we can't do that.
Please don't do that.
Um, they're like, but I feel like I'm filling up full of crap and I feel worse if I don't do it every day. And I go, I hear you, but you're also dumping minerals out and dumping out
Hmm.
your liquids. So you're kind of keeping yourself at this like unsustainable
Hydrated.
threshold.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we figure out poop every day, open up lymph and lymph
Wet.
through doing vibration plate, castor pack, dry brushing. There are some herbs like I use lymph active or I'll use drainage activator from Cellcore to help those things kind of flush out. Once the drainage is open for a person where their body actually could clean out, then I get into this conversation where people are like, oh, you have to do mold first, you have to do this first or that first, or it's always mercury, it's always that. I'm like, well, what about the larger organisms that actually literally can block up your lymph, that actually can block up your liver, like a parasite? Now, that may
Mm.
not go away long term until you get the mold and metal out, but if they're actually physically blocking pathways, then they have to be removed first. So sometimes I'll do parasite first, work on the gut microbiome next to make sure that the digestive tract is able to move. And then you'll have to maintain those things while you're getting to the molds, the environmental toxins, and the metals, because those things that I just mentioned can be so small, they can get intracellular and they can cause damage to the mitochondria, which we can use testing to prove. And then once you're able to get those out, now the mitochondria start kicking on. And now the body starts doing its job on its own. And I'm talking about people, by the way, from a very sick state where I have to go through all of this to get them back to a baseline of function, right? To get them
Mm.
back to a baseline of, okay, now your body will start taking over. And once people get to that point where mitochondria are turned back on, you can really get more into the terrain conversation of, okay, well, now that your body's working the way it's supposed to, and it's strong enough to mount proper immune reactions, and it's strong enough to detox out toxins as they are coming in, now, as long as you maintain that, then you're really not going to get sick. Like I don't get sick anymore. I mean, I'm around people that have colds that I put my hands on people as part of my job that are hacking and coughing, and I don't even worry about it because
Mm.
now my terrain is strong, my mitochondria is vibrant, and I'm not just going to allow things to take me down because I'm curating what is bringing into my body every day. Like I know my house is clean. I know my products are clean.
Yeah. And what role do you see diet playing in all of this, or how do you counsel people with diet?
Yeah, so diet's interesting. There's a lot of fad diets out there. There's a lot
Hmm.
of research to prove that all the fad diets work for someone.
Right.
So every Instagram influencer, talking head out there has a favorite because it's controversial and that sparks conversation and then they get followers. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. I'm boring. A whole food, organic diet that has balanced macros is like my start point for pretty much everybody. When I say balanced macros, I mean carbs, fat, and protein.
Hmm.
Literally 33% of each is like the initial thought point that I'm coming from. Now that doesn't work for everybody because nobody is exactly identical to the next person.
Hmm.
I personally live a more animal-based lifestyle where probably 70% of my food comes from an animal, meaning meats. Um, I'll put a little honey here and there on things, but I really just don't care for the sweet to add.
Yeah.
But I'll chop up in my beef bowl asparagus and onions and green onion, and I'll put on there lots of seasonings. But that works really well for me. I'm an O blood type. I'm a muscular male. I will cheat a little bit more on the weekends and have a little bit more carb. I do put a little rice in there. So for me, that works well. My blood looks good. My inflammatory pathways look good when I'm on that diet.
Hmm.
I, when I talk to more women, I hesitate to put women into higher carb protein diets for long periods of time. I think they can be useful as a transition out of, okay, your mitochondria aren't
And an
working
American
well.
diet.
Yo, for sure. The American diet's
Yeah.
awful. Like you can get away with almost any fat diet besides the
Yeah.
American diet. But I just
Yeah.
see people getting stuck in carnivore versus vegan. And I'm like, neither
Right.
one are sustainable for a long
Uh-uh.
time without a lot of caveats of like figuring out how to get enough protein and B12 for the vegan and how to get enough fibers and other things for the carnivore. And,
Hmm.
and everybody's like, well, I know someone's been doing it for 10 years. I'm like, great, but they're the exception to the rule, not the rule.
Hmm. Yeah. I put a post up yesterday that said there was an influencer that said eating half an apple was too much sugar. So I posted myself eating an entire apple to counterbalance that because I'm just like, I think we're going after the wrong things here in these diet conversations. And
Mhm.
I've been carnivore to carnivore for 2 years. It was what I needed for a little bit of time. I did it too long and ran into a bunch of problems.
Mhm.
Um, that's not a popular conversation either. And so I feel like there's utility sometimes for a carnivore diet. If I've got,
Mhm.
I don't know how you feel about this, but if I have somebody with autoimmune issues, I am going to have them go off of oxalates. I'm not going to have
Yeah.
them eating like potatoes, spinach, because if they do, their joints start hurting. I've
Yep.
gotten people completely out of joint pain by going more animal based. And then, yeah, we can eat some baked apples and squashes and things like that that don't bring in the anti-nutrient profile,
Mhm.
and they do great with that. And they're like, wow, I'm out of pain. Um, but it's such a nuanced topic and conversation. I just wish that we could all sit down and agree that it's standard American diet is crap and people are getting obese because they're drinking Mountain Dew and eating chips and soda, not because of fruits and vegetables. It's just like
Yeah.
it's gotten completely out of hand. And so then people come to people like us and they're just like uber confused about, okay, well, what do I eat? It's like protein, whole single ingredient foods, in
Yeah.
season, local, organic. I mean, keep it simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
Health
be
is
so.
not complicated. Health is
No.
really not complicated when you rewire out of the Western medicine model where it's so much of a, you have to know this lab works, know this chemical compound to
Hmm.
change that physiology without fixing the problem, because that is complicated.
Hmm.
Um, and it's also not complicated when you get into functional medicine. And again, this is to stay well, not necessarily to get well. Like there is some nuance for each person to get well, but to stay well, it's like go back to the basics and you'll probably stay well pretty easily.
Hmm.
And like you said, you went carnivore for 2 years. Um, I wouldn't put most women on carnivore for 2 years because you're going to end up creating a fight or flight situation because you're not on carbs and your hormones need some of those.
Hmm.
In most cases, there is an exception to every rule. Uh,
Right. Sure, there's
but
always the outliers. But for me, it was like I couldn't get pregnant. And I was like, wait, all these carnivores are saying that this is the best diet ever for pregnancy, but I can't get pregnant.
no,
Oh,
no,
my
I don't
sex
believe.
hormones and my thyroid are all in the toilet. But the
Mhm.
influencers are telling me that I should be optimal and I'm not. So yeah.
I struggle to be a let's just call it a talking head, a person on social media, podcast, whatever, and get following to some degree because I don't want to be controversial in a way of
Yeah.
saying these really strong statements that then I know in the long term could be the fad of today or
Right.
could be taken in a way that could be detrimental to someone.
Hmm.
And I've ate a big pile of spinach and posted a post and be like, oh, the oxalates are not good for you, right? And got attacked by all these vegans.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm just like, can we not agree that an overabundance of anything is a problem? And like you said,
Right.
it's just people
Cook
get
it.
brainwashed. And the
Friggin'
funniest part of it is
friggin'
the whole
cook it and
thing.
eat it in the spring when it's seasonal. Come on.
Yeah, the funny thing of all of this, though I've only been on social media for a few years, honestly. I think I started in like 2020 because it was, you know, the pandemic and
Hmm.
nobody was seeing anyone. So I was like, all right, I'll get out there and try to educate this way. I've seen so many people that were absolutely just obnoxious about how they would attack people for being in different belief systems than they are about diet that are now
Hmm.
no longer on that diet.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's wild. And it will continue to happen because,
Mhm.
or they're going to lie about it. Cause I see that too. People that they are talking about a specific diet and they're not even on it. You get to know them behind the scenes and they're not even eating that way. I'm like, wow, it's wild out there. And the average person, I talk to my community like people. I feel like the people that listen to the podcast. I mean, my husband was reading me some of the reviews last night because I freak out. I don't look at this stuff, but some of the stuff that people had written in or like Sarah, it actually respects her people, like has a real conversation with them. She keeps it real. She wants to give people solutions. And I was like, wow, thank you. Because that's how I want it to be. I can't talk to every individual that listens to this or that listens to my content or even reads my newsletter, but I appreciate every single person. And I always imagine the person on the other end who's listening to it. And I'm like, yeah, some people might get this twisted, but I think a lot of people will understand will understand that I'm trying to have nuance in this topic and conversation and bring in a guest who's respectful of people and not just trying to trigger people and not just trying to upset people to get views and likes. And yeah, it's a wild world out there.
Oh yeah, it for sure is. And I always I've learned now it's just a simple thing that different people need different things. We're not all going to
Yeah.
agree. And
Yeah.
coming to that realization allows for us to have custom care for people within the way that
Yes.
I work in my clinic because it's not based off of what worked for me. It's based off
Right.
of what their history, their lab markers, and their lifestyle will allot for. Now,
Right.
that said, sometimes your lifestyle doesn't allot for healing, so we have to change some
Mm-mm.
things. But
Yes.
it is based off
Yeah.
what your body's showing.
Sometimes it's a really hard conversation you have to have with someone. It's like this job that you have is wrecking your health, or this relationship, or the even just your viewpoint on the world, on life is causing this downstream issue in your mitochondria and your whole system. And so that can be a difficult conversation for people. And I see people hopping from practitioner to practitioner because sometimes they aren't willing to go to that deeper layer and address that lifestyle issue or that thought process.
Oh yeah, that's why I put the environment and the nervous system before the protocol in my notes, so people know that the priorities from top to bottom are in that order. That
Mm-hmm.
way, that can't be skipped. We're spending
Mm-mm.
more time, effort, and energy. Every time you scroll down, you're seeing those parts first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you're the person who sent over questions for me to ask. You mentioned something about circadian rhythms, which that's my specialty. So I'm curious to know if that's something that you implement in your practice with your patients.
I definitely talk to people about circadian rhythm, fasting, sleep a lot because when you're stuck in a fight or flight state, you're in an arousal state all the time, just like up,
Mm-hmm.
like you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to be calm.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the clients I work with, I mean, goodness, I was just working with a young woman yesterday, and her sleep pattern was 2 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Oh
That was her
no.
sleep pattern.
Mm-mm.
And I'm going, I know why you're stuck in this state. She doesn't want to necessarily do that, but when she tries to go to bed
Yeah.
early, she cannot fall asleep. So we're working
Mhm.
on strategies to start trying to move that clock back
Day
because
shift. Yeah.
your body does trigger hormones based off of the sun to some degree, which is why people
Mhm.
in Scandinavian countries or Alaska tend to sleep more in the winter because the sun's down
Mhm.
and be awake more in the summer and their bodies
Mhm.
really truly do go that way. I mean, shoot, I
Mhm.
was talking to some of the ladies in my office about just like what they do in the summer, and I'm like, you guys really are solar powered. Like you literally
Mhm.
in the summer are solar powered. In the winter, you're like craving it. That's why people feel that way.
Mhm.
Um, so circadian rhythm is definitely something to start implementing. Now, I also have to buck the system of circadian rhythm a little bit and say, to solve that problem, you do have to work the nervous system. So for
Mhm.
those who are like, I can't get well because I cannot sleep in the proper pattern, I'm like, no, that's not true. The rhythm that your body has is an effect of also what's going on in it. So it's
Mhm.
finding that balance, but goal being to some degree, sleep when the sun's down and be awake when the sun's up to some degree, and then
Mhm.
eat.
Yeah, the eating is
So,
a secondary circadian signal. So, yeah.
eating in that same kind of mindset, like when you wake
Mhm.
up, I am
Eat.
a fan of intermittent fasting
Mhm.
for myself, but when you wake up, you're going to eat in for me at least, the mid-morning hours, somewhere between 10 and noon start, and you're going to be done by that 7 o'clock time frame when you're trying to go to bed at 10.
Mhm.
So that's kind of that goal that I'm working people on because I'm trying to bring the hormones into health too. Really hot topic all the time is estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol. Like these are common known hormones. So people come and I think my hormones are off doc. I'm like, well,
Gotta
one,
go with
yes,
your master hormones first.
like yeah, let's check them. Let's see what those look like. But two, why would those things be off? Is it
Mhm.
because you chose to start going to bed later, or was it because you felt
Mhm.
like you weren't tired at night and you're tired in the morning? Well, if that's happening, then we need to work on those hormones by working on also what's going on in your body by removing those stressors, the mitochondria from the first part of our conversation today.
Mhm. Yeah, it's multifaceted. And I think when people get stuck in the weeds about the hormones, yeah, there's definitely some strategies to implement. But if your cortisol leptin and melatonin, those three are offline in disarray, then it's going to impact all the downstream hormones. Those are master hormones. So you can be this high stress person and flatline all the hormones. Like I see women in their early 30s, they're like, oh, my doctor says I need HRT because all my hormones are flatline. I'm like, perhaps not. Let's look at why that's happening. And
Hmm.
it's typically of sympathetic dominant, cortisol dominant state that's created this flatlining hormones. And that at that age, I'm not going to say the first thing we need to do is HRT. I'm going to say we need to fix this the cortisol pattern. And a lot of that stuff I've seen correct on its own once you give the body the right supports. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. HRT is very popular, even in the functional medicine realm now, has become extremely
Mm-hmm.
popular. People using it for longevity and so forth. And I'm going, yeah, I mean, it's good at changing symptoms. It is temporarily. You'll eventually need a lot more if you don't solve the actual problems.
Mm-hmm.
And we really don't know what the long-term downstream effect of this is going to be. I mean, for a long time, with synthetic hormones and led to cancer. I just have this itch that research is not scratched yet of like, is this going to be safe long term using HRT
Mm-hmm.
for everybody for this longevity movement? I just don't know. I'm not saying it is a problem. I haven't read research that shows that it's going to cause cancer or anything. I just kind of step back and I'm like, man, anytime you upregulate the body, which is what
Right.
hormones do, we've seen an increase in cancer because upregulation of cell differentiation is going to lead to mutation at some
Mm-hmm.
state, at some degree, right?
Right.
Again, I'm
Right.
not quoting research. I'm not saying I have any reason to believe this. It's just just that hair-raising thought that comes to mind. Now,
Yeah.
will I also tell women sometimes, yeah, after everything we've done, we've removed all the stress, you eat well, you try to sleep well, your hormones are still tanked. Sometimes there is a place for HRT to come in.
Mm-hmm.
But when a woman comes to me day one and says, Doc, fix my hormones, I'm like, okay, well, let's fix everything else first, see where your hormones
Yes.
land. Then we
Yeah.
can discuss this medication that you're going to be on, which is what HRT is, hormone replacement
Mm-hmm.
therapy, that you'll never get off of
Mm-hmm.
once you're put on it if you don't work on the reasons why your body was needing it.
Right.
And what I read a post one time about women, and I went down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, why is it that women's hormones are always tanked and men's hormones are not necessarily tanked when they're under the same kind of stress? And then I started getting into like, oh, wait, women, when their adrenal hormones are stressed, it decreases progesterone and estrogen because the adrenals have
Yes.
such a large role. So when a woman's
Yeah.
body is stressed, there's such a large role in your, let's just call it your backup battery, which is your
Mm-hmm.
adrenal glands. There's such a large role in producing your hormones that when you take from that, your women's hormones drop, progesterone, estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
men, it's not the same because we produce ours with testicles and testicles don't depend on adrenals. Our testosterone
Right.
may not go down until it's extreme levels of stress. So
Right.
then we can tolerate more stress for longer periods of time without hormone changes. And we also don't require as much sleep because the
Mm-hmm.
adrenals need that sleep to
Right.
recharge, which is why men in studies show that we sleep less than women. So it's just interesting the dynamic of today's culture where, to some degree, women are told to keep up with men. And I'm like, well,
Yes. 100%.
we need to be, we still have different needs for sleep and so forth. It doesn't make you less or more based off those needs. It's just those are natural physical needs. So be careful trying to do things that aren't built for your type of body.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd actually just posted on that this morning. And women are more sensitive to blue light. They're more sensitive to circadian disruption. They're more sensitive to calorie deficit. They're more sensitive to so many things. Why? Because biologically, the woman is supposed to make a baby.
Mhm.
Like it's not this cut and dry situation. Not to say that men are simplistic or anything like that. Their bodies do something different than what women do on a physiological basis. And so, yeah, the hormone conversation, just to circle back to that, it's something I've definitely been talking about a lot more on the podcast because I'll be 46 soon. And so that's definitely in my mind of like, okay, I know my hormones are declining. Do I want to go this route? how do I feel about it? My mom had cancer. I'm a poor estrogen detoxer. I'm an undermethylator. This whole like estrogen, good, 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 that's like out there right now. It's kind of a backlash of the other side. I'm still cautious about the whole thing. I'm still like, I don't know, you
Yeah,
know?
and I don't think we're gonna know fully, to be frank,
Yeah.
because we're all the human experiment right now for
Hmm.
medicine, no matter
Hmm.
what you're doing. So I'm not trying to dog HRT versus
No.
carnivore, which was an experiment that we've now figured out, oh, maybe pure
Mm,
carnivore for a long lifetime is not what we can talk about.
pulse it in there, but don't do, yeah.
So I think hormones is going to be interesting, and to
Yeah.
some degree, you know what? Extreme workouts are
Mm.
interesting, right? So like
Oh,
I
yeah.
like CrossFit personally because it just makes me happy to go work out really hard and somewhat compete against the other guys in the room and just have like a board because I'm competitive, right? So I like
Hmm.
that. Guess what? Extreme workouts will likely shorten your lifespan if you do them too much, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
is it possible that some of the longevity things that we're going to see come through, whether that's HRT or not, unknown, but as they come through, if you put in a bunch of HRT and you elevate your testosterone as a male, okay, well,
Hmm.
higher testosterone as a male does lead to male pattern baldness and
Right. Exactly.
potentially anger and
Right.
potentially cancer. Okay,
Yep.
so if you're going to live a better life for 20, 30 more years, but you lose 10 years of your full length of life, that's a choice that a man could make if they knew the full information, and that's a
Right.
choice that they get to
Informed
make.
consent. Yeah, that's what I'm all about on the show. Is like I want to just give people all the information so they can make their own decision. I have tons of women in my community that swear by HRT. They love it. I
Hmm.
will pry their HRT out of their cold, dead hands. And I'm like, cool. I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I just want to have a
Exactly.
full conversation about it and look at it from all sides. Like, not this black and white, good or bad. I want to know everything. So, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
It all has its pluses and minuses, risk reward. Are you willing to risk for the reward?
Hmm. And I guess while we're on the topic of controversial things, I'd love to know your whole take on GLP-1s because that's something I've been talking about a little bit as well, just dealing
Mm.
with different client stuff who've been on it. And I'd love to know what you see and your thoughts.
Well, I think definitely the max doses that people are getting with the 3, 4, 5 pound weight loss a week is absolutely a no.
No,
That's a problem.
no.
We're seeing I was on this GLP-1 at this dose and I had 60-pound weight loss in 2 months and now I'm losing vision. I've seen those posts go across social media and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, extreme is probably going to be bad in all cases. I've also
Right.
seen
Yeah.
I'm going to take let's say for if 5 milligrams is the medical dose for fast weight loss and we think that's bad. I'm taking a 0.5 milligram or 1 milligram
Yes.
and
Yes.
I've seen benefit from it because it's
Hmm.
anti-inflammatory. It decreases mast cell reactions for those people.
Yes.
It decreases hunger. And to be frank, the side effect of maybe low dosing GLP-1 to decrease hunger to keep a appropriate body weight for those people who don't have great leptin and ghrelin balance
Hmm.
might be worth it, right? So with our very limited knowledge, I think GLP-1s are going to be something that we are going to be able to use for the benefit of mankind long term at much less doses than the experimental over the last couple of years dosing has been. I'm
Hmm.
really intrigued with some of the stuff that's on the even the more natural realm with allulose sugar. Like this is a GLP-1 stimulating
Hmm.
sugar that I've heard of. I don't know much about it at all. I've been
Interesting.
thinking about it myself. I'm like, man, because I was a 250-pound guy when I was in college throwing shot put and I was sick. And then I dropped down and I've struggled a little bit to maintain the body weight I would like. I'd love to have a six pack. I don't. I'm fit. I'm healthy. I'm not overweight in a major way. But man, like having another pound off never hurts when it's in a healthy
Mm.
way. So I'm like, oh, well,
No.
maybe I use that as the sweetener when I want to put something in an electrolyte for my version of a sweet drink.
Hmm.
The probiotics that are GLP-1 stimulating, like, are these going to be helpful? Because
Hmm.
we've wiped out the gut microbiome of the world,
Hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
So did we
Like
lose some
acromantia, you mean?
Well, Akkermansia is one of them, but there are some other bacterial strains that they're finding that potentially are going to stimulate GLP-1. So there's like whole
Oh,
probiotics that are wrapped around GLP-1 stimulation now.
okay.
It's in
Interesting.
its infancy, so we really don't know the success. And I honestly just ordered one because I was like, hey, let
Oh.
me try it out. Let's see if I feel any change in my hunger. As a guy that, because I think I did some damage even to maybe some of the stimulating hormones in my own body back in high school and college when I was eating
Mm-hmm.
10,000 calories a day for a decade to get big enough to throw shot put. I'm hungry always at all times. And I can eat a ridiculous
Mm-hmm.
sum of food, although I don't, I can. And if I
Mm-hmm.
slip up and indulge, then I've got to like, okay, well, now I need to balance that out.
Go
So
a
if I
little
could
fast.
is it maybe all the antibiotics I took when I was in seventh grade and I had strep 7 times because I was kind of a sick kid? Is it the
Mm-hmm.
toxins from eating the glyphosate in my food that's wiped out certain bacteria in my gut? Because I got a friend, two of them, two females even. I got a couple guys too, but two females I'm thinking of. They have a six pack because it's I just tell them it's like it's God's gift. You have a six pack. You do nothing
Yeah.
for it. Sure, you live somewhat healthy, but it doesn't matter. You just don't gain weight. Like, why? What
Yeah.
allows that genetic type, that microbiome type to be that way? So as we learn more about these GLP-1s, could you have bacteria that are stimulated in your gut that maybe we've lost through the industrial revolution that a few
Mm-hmm.
people still have that will keep you thinner because possibly it controls your appetite and does some of those anti-inflammatory processes. So I'm really curious on the more natural side how we stimulate this. Although, yes, a milligram, half milligram of a semaglutide injection does work, I'd rather reconstitute the body like those people.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. And that's what I've got. I have a lot of people that have done a GLP-1 and even a low dose, not the medical high dose. It caused one of my clients had a huge gallbladder issue. She would
Mhm.
have like gallbladder attacks every time she would eat. We've been
Yeah.
able to reverse it. It took some time. So I haven't had anyone with like irreversible issues from GLP-1, but I have seen gut issues, gallbladder. And so I'm kind of like, it's one of those things like with the HRT conversation, everyone's like, it's good, it's good, it's good. And I'm like, well, I want to know all sides, you know? So that's really interesting. That's something I want to look into now with the different probiotic strains. And yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, we've now figured out basically that GLP-1 can help people. It's just how do you get it
Mm-hmm.
in and at
Yeah.
what dosing for whatever that thing is. Maybe probiotics, for instance, can cause GI dysfunction, right? So
Mm-hmm.
overdosing of them. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
everything has a positive and a negative. Too much magnesium can cause diarrhea, but it can cause relaxation
Right.
and improved thought and sleep and brain. So I always step back and that's where you need an expert on your team to support you, to help you when you're trying to make these decisions. Because unless you yourself are one, and even if you are, do you know everything about everything? I don't. I
Yeah.
constantly am texting friends that are in different niches than I am of
Mhm.
medicine, going like, "Hey, I had this thing come up. What are your thoughts?" Because that's your area.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important is, and all the practitioners I know and I'm good friends with, they have a network and it's that way. They talk to one another and they learn from others and then they learn from their patients too. They're not just like, this is the way it is. This is my protocol. End of story. They're always like, oh, that worked different for this person. Why? They continue to ask the questions. And I think that's what makes somebody a really good doctor or practitioner is that they're open minded and they're not just stuck in their ways. And I think that's my community is like sick of the allopathic system because that's kind of how it is. Like they just shut you down. But
Yeah.
there's a different world out there where there are people that do have dialogue with patients. So, and it sounds like that's what you do, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I've actually, I've, I would say irritated a couple of clients in the past because they're like, "Well, what's the rest of the protocol we're going to be doing?" I go, "I don't know. It depends on how your body responds to this. And once you make it through this piece of the journey, then that will help to give me information about what our next step may be. Yes, we ran
Right.
these labs, and yes, I see your history, and those things weigh heavily on where we're going, but." I also need to check your body and how it responds. And I've had a couple, like I said, get annoyed because they're planners. They want to know what steps next, when they're going to make see changes. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, it's not black and white like that. And
Hmm.
this is why I've had success with people is because I don't have a one size fit all. I have a very unique based on you approach.
Right. I love that. Well, this has been really fun. If people want to find you, work with you, you still see clients, right? Patients in your office? Do you see people virtually as well?
Yes, well, so we do virtually work with people around the world. I have several teammates on my team, chiros, medical doctors, acupuncturists, because I want to keep a really wide viewpoint
Mm,
of all pieces of health so that we all meet as a team and go through things. So we work virtually. We also have a brick and mortar clinic here in Kansas City to see people. If you want to come in and see us, shake our hands, give us a hug. It's fun. I love seeing clients. Even at times when I'm in other cities, I went and got a stellate ganglion block myself 2 weeks ago now and
nice.
met one of my clients at that clinic. She was going to get one and decided to go there with me. So I love getting
Cool.
to meet my virtual people too.
Very cool. I love it. Well, I'll make sure to put all of your information in the show notes. But do you guys have a website or anywhere if anybody's driving and listening to the podcast that they could just look you up real quick?
Yeah, look me up. My name, Dr. Period, Jabin, Jab as in boy, A-N, Moore, Moore. And I've got Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, website, all the things.
You're blowing up on Instagram now. I remember when you first started posting and now you've got what, like 500,000 followers or something like that. Great.
Almost 700,000 now, I think.
Wow. Amazing. That's awesome.
Well,
Very
thank you.
cool. Yeah, well, I'll make sure that's all in the show notes so people can find you if they want to work with you. And I really appreciate the conversation. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for having me, and maybe we'll see you around at a conference somewhere.
Maybe. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. Just a quick little reminder, this is not medical advice nor meant to be taken as a substitute for working one-on-one with a healthcare practitioner. And if you enjoy the show, please head on over to Apple or Spotify to leave the show up to a 5-star review. If you're over on YouTube, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. I really appreciate you for being here, for listening to the show, and your support means the world to me as I continue to try to pull guests from around the world to bring you informative content to empower you to make decisions about your own health. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.